let's go ahead and jump right into my favorite article of the week. And it actually comes from Modern Survival. I'm going to go ahead and go there. modernselfreliance.com. And the title of the article was 9 Preparedness Tips for the Office. And so Lauren did a great job over there, Lauren and Tim. And I've read their articles before on the podcast. But I just want to kind of bounce off of these. So some of the things about, when we talk about office preparedness and we talk about that, when you really think about it, you are at the office for a lot of your life, actually, right? If you go and you work a normal 9 to 5 job or a normal job, 8 hours, you're going to be there a lot of your life, a third of your adult life. And so it does make sense that when you go to your office or you go to your workplace, that you are prepared, that you do have some items to help you in your preparedness. The other third of your life, you're sleeping. The other third of your life, you might be at home. And at home, you have all your preparedness items. So what happens if you get caught at work? Do you have items where you can be prepared? And of course, you're not going to be staying, you're not bugging in at work unless you are in a snowstorm or a blizzard. And we have done articles before on Prepper website where people had to stay in their offices or in their office building because there was this great blizzard and the roads weren't safe and people were they were stalling out on the roads, and that's pretty dangerous because if you don't have a lot of gas, you're gonna freeze, right? And sometimes people out there where it's cold up north, if they're going just from they're used to going from their office to their car and they're from their car back to their home, they're not dressing well enough to be able to be trekking it in a blizzard, right? And so they might just have a lighter jacket or those kinds of things because they expect to be inside their building for a lot of the time, inside their workplace. So a lot of those people were not very well prepared when they got stuck on the roadway, and so needed to be rescued and those kinds of things. So a lot of people were staying in their office buildings, and so at something like that, you do want to be prepared for all of that. There's so many things that can go wrong. So let's go ahead and let's just bounce off of this a little bit here. So again, 9 preparedness tips for the office. The first one that Lauren mentions is, and she breaks it down into like biological emergencies, active threats. Let me see here. Evacuations from the office, right? So she talks about a first aid kit. And oh man, I was going to grab my little first aid, my little mini kit that I always have. And so that's definitely one of the things that you should have, right? You should have a first aid kit in your vehicle. I think that's always important. You can go get the basic first aid kits at Walmart. You can get the $9.99 ones, and I'll tell you what. Not too long ago, it really came into to benefit for. We were serving the homeless, and we were feeding the homeless, and my pastor's friend. His wife got bit by something and it stung really bad, and so it seemed like she was having a little allergic reaction to it, and so I was able to go into our first aid kit that we keep underneath the car seat and was able to get her the sting relief and also some Benadryl that she could take. And so that it's always beneficial to have it there. You never know when you're going to need it. So you should always have that first aid kit there, but also you should have some kind of first aid kit in the office. Now, if it is a decent office building or an office and you have your employees or your employer does what they're supposed to, they might have a decent first aid kit in the office, but you don't always want to just leave it up to someone else. We're prepared. So you might want to keep a little small IFAC kit or individual first aid kit. A lot of the times you can buy those off of a bunch of different websites. I know, my friend Mark Goodwin over at Prepper Recon sells them, and he sells a really nice kit. It's about $89, but it's a gunshot wound kit and all those kinds of things. My friends over at Doom and Bloom, Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy, they have great kits available as well. But so if you don't want to make your own individual kit, I definitely would recommend that you buy a really good one, right? So buy a good one to have. But you can make your own. You can go over to Amazon and you can buy everything that you would want to put in a kit. You can get at Amazon, and you can make multiple kits. So if you're wanting to buy sting relief, if you're wanting to buy, bulk, Benadryl and, ibuprofen and all that kind of stuff and put them in little Ziploc bags, you can do that, and buy gauze and whatever you want, and you can make your own kits. And so it would be a good idea to have your own first aid kit. You never know what you might, when you might need it. You never know how you might help someone. I know that there's been times in the office where someone needed just a Band-Aid, right? And I was able to pull it out. I carry my little mini Altoids kit, my little medical kit, mini Altoids kit in my backpack, along with some another little kit for urban stuff, right? Just different things that I would use. And someone needed a Band-Aid. I was able to pull one out and hand it to them. And like, wow, you're really prepared, Todd. I'm like, yeah, I am prepared. There is a lot of to that, and I was able to open up a little conversation about preparedness. And so, that might be an opening there. But having a first aid kit, is nothing wrong with that, definitely. While we're talking about preparedness in the workplace, if you have a filing cabinet, I know that I was able to have one when I was an assistant principal on the elementary campus. I had a couple of filing cabinets that were mine, and two of them I just kind of kept empty. I kept like some shoes in there for when it rained, so I wouldn't wear my good shoes out in the rain. It always seemed to happen when I wore brand new shoes, it would rain. So I was like, I'm tired of this. I took some old tennis shoes and left them in there. But you can, if you have like a filing cabinet or you have a drawer that's empty, man, you can use that. So you can stock things in there. So if you need to put first aid, supplies in there and not necessarily have a kit, that would be a great idea as well. So you can do that and help some other people out. All right, so let's go ahead and keep moving on, because we can talk about first aid a lot. One of the things that they talk about is sanitation, and really this is more along the lines of hygiene, right? Especially right now when we are in we're still in flu season, and germs are very strong out there. I walk into a room with people coughing and stuff, and I just want to just kind of duck and hide, and I've gotten really used to just doing the fist bump, man. There's power in that, because people want to shake your hand like, hey, how you doing? Well, I'm like, yeah, how you doing? And I don't have a problem, when we do the fist bump. I'm like, the flu and all that. And a lot of people are appreciative of that, right? They're like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, we should be doing that. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to get sick. And so it's just smart to do that. But when you need to be a little bit, we talk about situational awareness all the time, and you need to be situationally aware of the people at work and if they're sick or not, because people don't realize it. You kind of subconsciously start wiping your nose and wiping your eye, and germs go into your eye and you get sick, right? Or somebody doesn't realize that they're sick, or they're starting to feel kind of like they're sick, and they start passing out germs. That's just crazy. I'm actually working on an article, and one of the things that an employer, sometimes we think employers would want people to come to work even if they're sick. It's kind of like press through, push through, come on, we need you at work. But really, if you think about it, if you're an employer and you've got sick employees coming to work, and maybe they even got fever, you're going to lose more productivity by allowing them to come spread germs and allowing those germs to go all throughout your workforce and your workplace. It'd be better like, hey, you're sick, you're running a fever? No, stay home until you're better, man. You got sick days. Don't come and infect everyone else. We need to make sure that we still keep production up and we're keeping things going. And so, that's very important. And so if you're an employer, or even if you're an employee, trying to get other people to realize how important it is to wash your hands and to do those kinds of things, that might be a way that you can talk about it. Is like, hey, we want to make sure that we're able to continue to work and be productive and get the work out there, because if work slows down, money stops coming into the company and all those kinds of things. And so that might be a way to approach it with your boss or with your other employees, to make sure that they're staying that they're staying healthy. The other thing is you can say, hey, you don't want to be sick and take this home to your, to your family, to your kids, and then you're going to be going home after a long day's work and you're going to be taking care of them, right? And so, all those things. But, there's been some talk about how like Germ-X and those kind of gels don't work, or they're actually worse. I don't know. You really got to flesh all that out for yourself. I know that that's one of the things that I'm always cognizant of when I go around people. And when I was on the elementary campus, parents were notorious for sending their kids to school sick with fever. They'd give them some Tylenol, and then 2 or 3 hours when the Tylenol wore off, they were in the nurse's office, with fever, and by that time they touched everything. And so one of the things I always did, I washed my hands. I would have cracks all along all along this part of my hand. And so when I would go to wash them, or if I couldn't wash them, I would go hit it with the gel. It would sting because I would wash my hands so much. Be careful about what you're touching. So if there's a door that I've gotten to the point, if there's a handle, so I don't know, let me just use this as a handle, right? And so if this is the top, a lot of the time people will grab the top to pull open, or they'll grab the side of it. I've gotten to the point where I'll use one finger and I just try to pull the bottom, the bottom piece, because people don't normally grab from the bottom. And so that's just kind of my way of trying not to pass germs along to myself, but being cognizant of washing in your hands and all those kinds of things, and then where you're touching. I think that's very important, right? All right, so let's go ahead and move on. I can keep talking about that forever too. All right, food and water. Definitely. So in this article, they talked about keeping food and water in your office, because you never know, when you might have a prolonged stay or all those kinds of things. And one of the recommendations was don't keep something that you like to eat. Keep something like Lauren said that she likes to have, or she likes to use like granola bars or something along those lines. She doesn't really like them, but if she's hungry, she will eat them, right? So that might be a recommendation that you can have. Or, if you do like, you have peanuts, or you do have some kind of granola bar or something along those lines, go ahead and get that, and then keep just switching them out, right? Go ahead and or trail mix or whatever. You just every week or every other week, bring another box or 2 boxes, and so you have fresh food there no matter what. I think it'd be a good idea to have water there, bottles of water. Hopefully, if your business really doesn't shut down their AC too much, you can have plenty of water there, and I think you're going to be okay. And so whether it's individual bottles or even big gallons of water, that would be fine too. And again, if you have a filing cabinet, you can easily put it in there or underneath a desk or something like that. I always did that just because I drink a lot of water throughout the day, and it was just convenient to have bottles of water. So definitely have some kind of food that you can snack on, that you could eat. Beef jerky, trail mix, granola bars, peanuts, those kinds of things, would be very beneficial to have at the office, right? All right, moving along. So she goes into active threats at the office, and she just talks about, one of the things is having good shoes. If you, for whatever reason, if you had to leave the office, if you needed to run, if you needed to get away, you want to be able to either switch into some comfortable shoes that you can walk in, that you can walk long distances in, or something that you're always wearing, so you're wearing comfortable shoes. I believe that in the article she mentioned that their workplace, everybody wears nice, comfortable shoes, and so that's kind of like just a given. Everybody has that because they are walking outside to other buildings and all that kind of stuff. So, like I said before, when I was on the campus, I would leave some tennis shoes, some older tennis shoes that were very comfortable. I had them, in a plastic bag in my drawer, so if I needed them, they were there, right? And so that's always a good idea. It might be a good idea to keep something like that in your vehicle as well, because if you were to break down, I know we'll talk about get home bags here in just a minute, but if you were to break down in wherever you might be, you want some comfortable shoes if you have to huff it back home, right? So having some good shoes is important. One of the things that she talks about is basic self-defense, because at this point, again, she's talking about active threats, that happen in the workplace, and they seem to be happening more and more and more, right? And so, what can you do as a basic self-defense? I mean, definitely, if your employer allows you to carry, man, you're blessed, because not everybody allows you to do that. But if they allow you to conceal carry, that would be great. I would suggest that you go and you get your license so that you're able to do that. If you live in a state that allows that, right? You might live in a state that just completely allows you without the license. You just need to make sure that your employer would allow that. And if they do, that would be great. But what other things can you use along the lines of being able to defend yourself? So I know that in the past we have talked always in the preparedness community, wasp spray comes up, and I don't know if that really works or not. The thing about wasp spray is that it sprays really far out, and so if an attacker was coming, you could spray them from really far out, and they didn't have to be really close to you like any other kind of spray would be, right? But definitely you wouldn't be able to tell anybody that that's what you had it for, because using wasp spray for any other intended purpose other than killing wasps is illegal, right? So it would have to be, hey, I have some wasp spray here because we're killing wasps, right? So you would have to have that. I don't know if it works or not, but anyway, so you have that there. But maybe some pepper spray, definitely. I always recommend getting the type of pepper spray. I mean, you want to get the good, the one, Cold Steel makes a really good one, but you want to get one that is going to work. And one of the things people don't realize is that pepper spray does expire. It doesn't last indefinitely. And so that's one thing if you bought one for your spouse, or you bought one for your daughter, or whatever, you need to really think about that. If it's been maybe 2 or 3 years, you need to go buy another one, and just go to Amazon or whatever. But I like the kind that come with two, right? There's one that's the actual pepper spray, and there's one that has like a foam or a water or something along those lines, so that you can get the feel of what it would be to flip it on and to actually spray it, and how far it would go, so you have some kind of idea of what it can do. A lot of the times people carry around pepper spray, they never really ever use it. And so if they were in emergency situations, then they're flipping around with it and like, hey, how do I do this, right? And so in this one, you get that, you know how to flip it, and you know the distance that it'll go, right? So anyway, that's just my recommendation. I know that in the past when I've purchased it for my wife, that is one of the things that I was looking for, is one where she could practice what the real one would do. So you've got to really think about how you would prepare, right? How you would prepare some type of defense, because the next thing that she goes into, let me go back to the website here, is run, hide, fight, and there is a video here about that, and this is becoming more of a thing. I remember on the campus. Before our district really shared that, hey, this is, because before it used to be lockdown, we would go into lockdown if there was an active shooter. And now the new recommendation is run, hide, fight. And I remember when I started talking about that on the campus, and I was like, look, I don't really care what the district is saying. What you need to do is you need to do what's best for you and your kids. And if the best thing for you to do is to run and to get out, you need to run and get out. And so we were talking about that way before the district said, hey, this is going to be our new policy, run, hide, fight. So run if you have to, hide if you, run if you can, hide if you have to, and fight if you must, right? To be able to do that. And so if you are having to fight for your life, what are you going to do? Well, let me go back up just a minute, right? The run aspect of it. You got to remember, a lot of the people that have active shooters, and we've seen active shooters, are not, your they're amateur, shooters, right? They're not the type of person that could follow someone who's running and shoot them while they're on the move, a moving target. A lot of the times they're shooting people that are just still and those kinds of things. So running would be a very good thing. You have a high probability if you were running away from someone, if you could zigzag a little bit while you were moving, there's a less possibility of you being shot. But if you can't do that, you need to hide. And one of the things that if you are in a office building or an office and you have your own door, how could you block that door in an active shooter situation? If you could not get out, how could you block that door? There are a lot of ways. You can Google, you can search on YouTube on how to block a door, how to lock a door in place. They even sell devices that easily spread across the bottom of the door, and then kind of you lock it in place really quick and someone could not push the door open. And so I think that would be something that would be that you would want to look into. If you ever got caught in your office and you could not get out for whatever reason, you would want to make it as difficult as possible for people to come in and to do harm. And then the last thing is fight. What would you fight with? What do you have available? What can you bring in as maybe something that's a decoration in your office that you could use to fight with if you had to, right? All those kinds of things. Maybe, hey, I have my Louisville Slugger that was signed by my favorite baseball player, hint, hint, and you have it up on a bookshelf or something, or in a corner, and if anyone asks, oh yeah, that was my whatever, signed by whatever, fake the signature, who cares? But you have this big bat there to be able to defend yourself if you needed to in whatever reason. So you have that. The other thing, and we've talked about this recently, is kind of war game what you would do. And on the podcast, we read an article about situational awareness. And so what would you do if a active shooter or someone trying to hurt you came in from this way? What would you do if they came in from this way? What would you do if you didn't you couldn't get out or whatever reason? What would you do? And the reason that you war game those, or you go through those thinking those thoughts, not because you're in fear, but so that you're not in fear, so that you have a frame of mind if you're ever in that situation, God forbid, that you already have thought about it. Your mind, they just finished with the Winter Olympics, and I don't know if you saw, I didn't watch hardly any of it, but sometimes when they show the downhill skiers, right, you'll see them and they might have their headphones on, they have their eyes closed, but they're doing this number, right? They're leaning into turns, and they're thinking about their run, right? They know where the turns are. They know how much they need to lean. They know, hey, this turn right here is going to be, a doozy. I really need to be careful. I need to really cut it hard, or whatever it might be. And so they're going through that in their mind. And the thing is that your mind doesn't always know the difference between what was faked and what was reality. And so you're processing those things, and those things go into long-term memory. And so if you can war game just a little bit of what you would do, you have a memory, a long-term memory that you can draw from, right? So if you like, hey, I am planning that if someone comes in this way, that I'm going to do this, this, and this. Well, you might be thinking about that over and over and over again, and that goes into your long-term memory. So when that happens, you can go into, you have a frame of mind, and your mind pulls up that memory and says, oh, remember, you said when this happened, you were going to do this, this, and this. As opposed to, it's the first time that you've ever seen it, and now you're trying to come up with it on the spot. And so your mind is very powerful. God knew what he was doing. Your mind is very powerful. So if you can process and put some of those things, we call that in education schema, right? It is your things that you have put on the inside of you, and you draw from those things when it's time to make decisions and time for new learning. And so that's a very important concept, and one of the reasons why people always talk about wargaming scenarios and things like that. All right, so moving right along. It's a good video here. Again, I've linked to this article in the description of the video, so you can go check this out. All right, so very quickly here, evacuations. from the office. So know your exits. So definitely you should know all the exits to the office. If you are up on a high floor and you always take the elevator, that's great. But then know the exits. Do know where all the exits are, just in case one of the exits is blocked. You're able to go to the other exit and just be familiar. Take a little bit of time to just go down those exits and see, is there anything there? Like if I go down a few floors, can I enter back in, or do I have to go all the way down to the bottom? Some office buildings are like that. You might look at your windows. If I'm blocked in, do my windows open? They look like they're open. Are they glued shut? Are they nailed shut? Can I open them, or can I break them if I had to, or are they shatterproof glass? Start thinking through some of those things about how can I get out. If you're on one of the a high floor, does your office building have one of those chutes, emergency chutes or emergency ladders that you could go down? I don't know. I mean, something you might want to ask. They've got some really cool ones now that it's really crazy. But I think I saw it was somewhere in Asia somewhere where it was this tall drop and it was almost straight down, but it was this tube and it kind of like it would hug you, and so you just kind of fall down into it and it would hug you going down, and it was crazy how just the innovation of it. But you would be safe and you could make it all the way down pretty quickly, but you wouldn't get hurt going straight down. So anyway, does your office building have something like that? The other thing that she talks about is multiple routes home. So let's just say that you had to, for whatever reason, you had to leave the office and your workplace and you needed to go home. Normally you take this street and you get on the freeway and you do this and you have a route that you take. But if you were going home and you couldn't go that route, do you know another route that you can go without bringing up Google, or bringing up a GPS, or bringing up a map on your phone? Are you familiar with those? And if you're not, take a couple of times, 2 or 3 days to find different routes to go back home, right? It's very easy to get on a map online and kind of look at it and see, hey, am I going through any rough parts of town or anything like that? Or maybe if you were walking, you might not be walking straight on all the streets. There might be a place, a big field that you could cut through and save yourself 10, 20 minutes if you were just able to cut straight through this field, right? And so you definitely want to know all the routes home that you need to be able to get home. Home bag is just the supplies that you need to be able to get home. One of the things that I do, or that I recommend, is you can have, because I live in Houston, it gets very hot, and you don't want to keep things like food and water inside your vehicle, because when in the middle of summertime, your vehicle can get up to 125, even hotter, very, very easily, right? So you don't want to keep, I don't want to keep water with plastic water bottles and stuff like that in there. So what I would recommend is you can have your contents in there, a get home bag, and all the contents that you normally would have, and maybe you stuff those underneath a seat, or if you have a truck underneath, you have a bench seat that will fold, or if you have a vehicle, you can put it in the trunk. And maybe you don't have a get home bag, maybe you have like a get home tote or something along those lines. I don't know, but you have that available back there in the back. And then you have a smaller, more compartmentalized bag that you have some food and water in, and you can just kind of keep that and take that with you on the inside. Even if it's something like a lunch kit, it looks like a lunch kit, and maybe you don't want other people to wonder what it is. You can keep it in a big lunch kit or something like that. I have a backpack, and so it's very easy for me to, just carry that backpack wherever it is. And so that has the things that I need inside of there. And so that's what I would recommend for a get home bag. I do recommend everyone, if you work more than 10, 15 minutes away, by car, yeah, I think you should have a get home bag. When you are running around the city and those kinds of things, you never know when things will happen. Having a get home bag, having some basic supplies that you need is always a great thing. Definitely if you travel for work and you travel long distances, you really definitely need one, and you probably need to have a more robust get home bag. But if you, even if you're around the city, and you can get home pretty quickly, it's always smart to have some water, and again, like some good shoes, maybe a t-shirt you can change into, those kinds of things. And so think about your needs and what you have. Don't go online and find somebody's list of a get home bag and then just replicate that, because their needs are going to be different than your needs. You know exactly what you need, and so go ahead and get that. And again, you can, if you have the space, you can make another get home bag and keep it in your office, in your filing cabinet, or in a drawer or something along those lines, where you have things that you might need that way too. Just think, you never know what happens, but that might be something that you want to do, right? Or have a smaller bag with some other items in there. That's always a positive thing. So if you didn't get to listen to this episode 253, go on over to modernselfreliance.com and check out 9 preparedness tips for the office, and go see what they have to offer over there. It's some good stuff. I think being prepared at the office, like I said before, if you're just now coming on, I know some of you have come on to the video here as I've been going. We spend a lot of time at the office, and so it's one thing to we spend a third of our lives there if you work 8 hours, and so it's smart to be prepared at the office, just like you are prepared at home, and just like you're prepared whenever you go out somewhere else. And so having a few basic items can mean a big difference for you if you're ever in an emergency situation. So I hope you will take some time to do that. And if you are in an employer and you have employees, consider what you can do to help your employees feel better prepared, and feel, can you imagine what it would feel like if you were the employer and it's like, hey, we're taking these measures to make sure that you're safe, to make sure that you're taken care of, to make sure that you're okay in any kind of emergency, right? And think about how your people would feel about that, right? So anyway, that's just a little tip there, and a lot of tips actually for being prepared in the office workplace. So guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me and being a part